Hey, what's up, everyone? Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is where you guys are. Thanks for hanging out here today. The agenda is very simple. Really nothing aside from just hanging out and talking shop and answering your guys' questions. So I see there's already a bunch coming in the chat, which is awesome. So why don't we just dive in? I will try to answer as many as I can in about the next hour. So just go ahead, type it in the chat. All right, you got Adam. Preamp under $700. Is there something universally good for mic tracking vocals and DI tracking bass and guitar? Oh yeah, for sure. A preamp under $700, like just a single channel of preamp, that should be no problem. Basically, I think if you're buying any preamp that's like over $500 for one channel, it's probably pretty solid. So honestly, you're safe with like anything. For preamps and outboard gear, if I'm gonna invest, a decent amount of money in that, I'm probably going to one of the names that's really established in the industry, like, an SSL or a Neve or an API, something like that. I'm trying to think of the ones that I've owned, like API 3124. That's a 4-channel pre though. It's about $2,000. But again, that's like 500 per channel. So yeah, I'm not super familiar with what's available right now in terms of a single channel around that price range, but that's more than enough budget, I would say. So yeah, just stick with kind of the established brands, the established names that have a reputation for putting out good stuff. And in that price range, you should be safe for anything from tracking vocals to DI and bass guitar. All right. This is Leon. Actually, I think, Leon, you asked it twice. Let me get your other comment here. It said, do you think a good mix today will differ much from a good mix in 15 years? Yeah, for sure. I think, I think it was someone else who followed that up and said, mixing techniques constantly changing and improving. Check a good mix from 2008 versus one now. There's a massive difference, don't you think? Yeah, absolutely. I think it will be different. And it's like, it's trends, right? Trends change. And I've even noticed this in my own mixing. Like, I am mixing differently now than I mixed 10 years ago. And when I say differently, I don't mean like workflow or like techniques. Not that. I still use the same system, the same way I approach mixing, the techniques that I use, the plugins I use, like pretty much all the same. What's different is just like, what's the outcome I'm going for, right? So definitely, like, especially in my world, like the rock music, heavier music, hardcore metal. I think, again, going back to like 2010, 2012, that range, things were a little more upper mid-range focused. You'd have more like 1 to 2K kind of like grindy sound, whereas these days, I love the mixer Zach Cervini. I think he's absolutely amazing in what he's doing. He's mixing so many records like Bring Me the Horizon, Architects. He's behind so many really great sounding heavy records these days. And he's got a different sound than that. It's like not as much in that 1 to 2K mid-range area. It's not as focused there. It's fatter in the low end. It's a little shinier in the top end. I feel like he's kind of taken more of a mainstream pop kind of sound with that really extended top and bottom, but then also put in this really beefy mid-range for rock and metal that is really cool. And it's definitely different than what was out there, what was popular, 10 years ago. So things change for sure. Tastes change. You get people like Zach who are kind of innovative, and to me, his mixes sound very much like a CLA kind of style in the mid-range, but then he's extended the top and bottom, and he's made it a little fatter in the lower mids. And I think that's kind of like more of a sound that's becoming popular, probably because of him, honestly, mixing these huge bands. So I think that happens. Trends change. So yeah, it's going to be different probably, but I don't think it's going to be crazy different. I mean, yeah, you listen to mixes 15 years ago from now to today, they're different, but like they're still like they're not crazy different. We're not talking about the difference between like how a Beatles record sounded, way back when compared to how rock records sound now. Like that's a massive difference. we're not going to hear that kind of difference, I don't think, unless something really crazy happens technologically. But yeah, that's my perspective on that, Leon. All right, George says, does using outboard gear while recording the source make that much of a difference during tracking phase? How much different is it mimicking that type of workflow with plugins than during mixdown? So how much difference does it make? Well, I would say not that much difference. I guess I could answer that by saying I'm just as comfortable having no processing on the way in as I am having processing on the way in. In fact, I'm probably more comfortable not having as much processing because that's just kind of like I came up on in the box world, right? I didn't come up on like mixing on consoles or recording on consoles with a bunch of outboard. I came up with no outboard, right? So I'm very much used to recording kind of dry and then doing the processing later. There are a couple areas where I do really like to have some outboard. Vocals is the main one. I want to have a compressor when I'm tracking vocals. I think that does make a difference. I love the distressor. It's my favorite compressor because when you're tracking vocals, like you need a lot of compression to achieve that kind of modern in-your-face pro vocal sound. Like that sound is compression. I've done other videos on my channel you might have seen. And so to record a completely raw voice with no compression, it doesn't sound right. It's not close enough to like the finished benchmark. And it also makes it harder for you to really hear their performance because, the dynamics can be up and down. So it's just harder for you to hear what they've done. It's harder for the singer to hear themselves. So I like to use the distressor and I'll, not be too shy with it. I'm happy to hit like up to 10, 12 dB gain reduction on the way in with the distressor. It's very transparent doing that. So I would say that does make a big difference for vocals. The only other place I use it would be sometimes on drums. If I'm in a big studio and there's a Necessel or a Neve console, like I'll put a little bit of EQ on the drums. I'll add some top end to the kick and the snare. I'll scoop out the toms a little bit. Just the stuff that I've already done in the mix for like 500 songs. Like I've mixed drums, I don't know how many times, probably more than 500 times. I pretty much know how I'm going to EQ drums. So I'll get a little bit of that on the way in on the drums. But it's not really because I feel like I have to or that it's going to make my mix so much better. It's just like I already know I'm going to do this. I have some cool gear. I know this sounds good. I know this gear. Like, let's just take care of it now. Let's get it sounding closer to a finished record right now, which is always my goal. Like in the tracking stage, I'm trying to get it to sound as close to a finished record as possible, right? So if I have all this outboard gear available to me to do that, I'm not going to go 100%, right? I still want to have freedom in mixing, but I'll take it 30, 40, 50% of what I know I want it to sound like. I'll at least commit that far and do it the rest of the way. Now, if I don't have any outboard gear, that's okay too. I would just monitor through a compressor, for example, tracking vocals. I would just put on a compressor plugin on the insert and listen through that as we're tracking, right? Like I need to hear that vocal with compression as we're tracking. So, and then when it comes to a mix time, you just add another stage of compression before you do your usual chain. If you're used to compressing on the way in, like I am, but I don't have that, then I'll put a distressor plugin on the way in, and then on first insert, and then I'll just like follow that up with my normal mixing chain. So yeah, hopefully that helps, George. All right, Ryan's asking, what are some tips for achieving perfectly balanced mix level-wise? Ooh, that's the magic question, man. Geez. Perfectly balanced mix. Well, I would say I'm not always going for a perfectly balanced mix. I was just mixing something the other day where because of what it was that I was mixing, I was like, I'm going to make this song purposely a little bit more drum heavy than I normally would. And there's other records where I'm like, I'm going to make this get a little more guitar forward compared to some other comparable records that are maybe a little more drum forward. I think this needs to be more guitar forward. So it's not, what is a perfectly balanced mix? Like, to me, it's also not static, right? It's always changing. Like I'm always automating throughout the song. Like sometimes I'm pushing up the kick and snare, so it's purposely like louder than you'd expect because it grabs your attention. Or I'm pushing up this guitar, I'm pushing up that lead guitar and I'm bringing it back down. and I'm creating that movement and change from the balance throughout the mix. But yeah, man, that's a hard question to answer because there's so much that goes into a great, well-balanced mix, right? Because it's like dynamics. The dynamics have to be balanced, and then the frequency range has to be balanced in a certain way that's pleasing. I guess one of the best tips I could give you is just referencing a lot. You know, aside from like really just putting in the time and learning the craft at a really deep level, just referencing, right? Like I think that's something that people miss a lot. Sometimes I listen to someone's mix and I'm like, there's no way you referenced against anything because this is so far away from what records sound like. You know, if you would just put on a reference track at some point during your mix, you would realize that you have no low end compared to any other record, you know, like, and then you can fix that balance wise. So definitely referencing, not going too crazy with referencing, but just keeping your ears in the right ballpark, right? For a few minutes before you start mixing, put on some of your favorite records. You hear them through your monitors. Oh, that's the ballpark. That's what I'm aiming for. Cool. Then you go. Then, you know, a couple hours later, you stop, you listen to a few more seconds of reference, you dive back into your mix. Just so you're aiming at the right thing. It's very easy to just like throw up some multi-tracks, start mixing, and you're like, before you know it, you're way off in one direction, and it could be totally wrong. You know, your drums could be twice as loud as they need to be, and you're not gonna figure that out unless you like listen to something else to kind of get you back in the right place, right? So yeah, hopefully that helps, Ryan. All right, Cohen is asking, do you first level the signals, for example, clip gain, and then apply compression to reduce dynamics of recorded tracks, or is this an approach you often take? Okay, yeah, so I guess the short answer is yes, I do level the tracks with clip gain, but I don't have like I'm not like one of those guys who's obsessed with like gain staging. He's like, every track needs to be at -18 before I start mixing. Like, I don't do that. I just literally look at the waveform on the screen, and if the waveform's like really big, I just like use clip gain and I just shrink it down so I have some headroom. Or if the waveform's like super small and I can barely see it, then I'll just clip gain it up till it's about in the middle. That's basically what I do. So some sessions need more or less of that, and that's kind of it. Now your second part of that question was, do you apply compression after that to reduce the dynamics? Definitely not. That's not a thing that's like an automatic, right? That's when you're listening with your ears, right? It's not like you're setting the gain level and then you're putting compression to reduce it to a certain amount of dynamic range. Like, no. Like sometimes there's some tracks in your mix that need like 30 dB of gain reduction, and there's other tracks in your mix that need like 2 dB of gain reduction. So that's totally a case-by-case basis. Of course, there's, you know, for drums, bass, guitars, like I have a mixing template which has compressors in it, and like I generally know, okay, on that snare I'm going for about 6 dB of gain reduction. With this compressor, I know that's a sweet spot. That's the sound I like. For electric guitars, I like to hit about 5 dB of gain reduction on this compressor. So I'm always kind of aiming for that, just because I've been through it so many times. I know what the sweet spot is that I'm looking for. So, you know, there definitely is like a process and it's repeatable, but it's not something I do at the start of the mix to all tracks the same, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Valerio, greetings from Italy. What's up, man? When tracking metal rhythm guitars in a 2-guitar band, do you make 2 guitarists record left and right, or do you prefer one guitarist of the 2 making both? Good question, man. I definitely prefer having the same guitar player track both left and right. Oh, it saves so much time. Every guitar player plays a little different, right? So if the goal is they're playing the same part, which for metal rhythms, like most of the time, the main guitars are playing the same thing. And then there's extra riffs, there's leads that come in over top, whatever. But you generally want kind of one part. That might include harmonies. Maybe the left is doing a harmony of the right, but essentially it's still the same part. So I have the same guitar, the same tone, and hopefully the same player on both sides. It's been a long time since I haven't done that, right? I'll just, and sometimes we'll switch it song to song. You know, if there's 2 guitar players in the band and they're both pretty good, and maybe guitarist A wrote this song, and guitarist B wrote the other song, like I'll let them record the rhythms for their song, but they'll do both sides. And it's a lot faster. It's a lot cleaner. It's a lot tighter. They're going to be able to double the parts a lot better than the other, than switching person. And it's going to be a lot faster because you can get the doubles as you go. So I don't just record a guitar track start to finish. I'll go like, okay, we're getting these like 4 bars. Cool, you nailed it. Double that 4 bars right now. Then we tune again, then we go on to the next little section, right? We do it like that. So it's a lot faster than if you had to go through the whole song with one guitar player, switch it up, another guitar player sits down, he's playing different, his tuning's different, whatever. You're going through everything twice. You're spending twice as much time, basically, rather than just getting one riff, cool, double it, riff it again, boom, we move on. It's a lot quicker that way. Hopefully you don't run into people complaining about that. That happens sometimes, but at a certain point in your career, you gotta be the leader. You gotta be like, listen, guys, I know that you're used to both playing this part in the song, but it doesn't make any sense. Like, one of you guys is gonna play all the rhythms on this song or on this record, and that's the way it goes. Okay, Second River Studio says a great song is the most important piece of gear in the studio. Can you talk about producing band songs? Yeah, of course I agree, man. Great song is everything. There's no amount of good production or mixing that is going to make up for a bad song. But a really great song can make up for not so great production and engineering. So for sure, producing the songs, working on the arrangements, very crucial. So, your question's kind of vague. I don't know exactly what you want me to talk about, but yeah, very important. Definitely, like, over the years, got more and more into that, where I would spend more and more time scheduling pre-production, where either I'd go to the band's practice space, or they'd come to the studio and we'd set up just kind of like a really rough tracking scenario where they can track live off the floor, and we'll just track demos. We'll listen to the songs a bunch of times, really nail down the arrangement to the point where it's like, okay, I know as a producer, like, what kick pattern are they playing in this verse? And does it change somewhere on the song? Like, I want to make sure that I know exactly everything that's happening with every instrument, and that every other band member also knows what's happening with every instrument at all times. So the more you can dig into that before you start tracking, the better, for sure. And really being able to have vocals and lyrics and know what those are and hear those melodies, and then have that influence, like, what the drummer's doing. If you listen to a lot of really well-written songs, good arrangements, good production, you'll hear like how the rhythm of the drums and the drum parts or certain drum fills will emphasize like vocal timing, and that's like when they've really thought this out. So yeah, super important, man. I definitely agree with that. You can, if we have time, throw in a follow-up to that if you wanted anything more specific. Why am I getting so much background noise, maybe noise floor, after compressing a track? You must be recording in a noisy environment. Because, yeah, if you're compressing the track, you're bringing up all the low-level noise and sound. So it could be just room ambience. Maybe you just need more soundproofing, quieter space, maybe some better gear if you're just doing DI and you have a lot of noise floor. Those are all things to consider. It's a little hard to know without actually hearing what the noise is, to know what exactly the problem is. Coconut Monkey Studios, if you could start building your studio from the studs, what would you focus on the most? Hey, this is an awesome question because I'm actually doing this right now in my basement. I'm going to put out some videos when we're a little further along, but I actually got Martin Pilchner, who's a really well-known professional studio designer in Toronto. He designed a mix room for me, and we're building it out in my basement. It's not going to be a big room. It's going to be about the size of the place I'm in right now. But so there are some things I'm focusing on. I guess it depends. If you're talking about a full studio with tracking room and mixing room, I definitely would focus on the isolation in the tracking room, and between the tracking room and the mixing room, and just the tracking room from outside noises. Like, definitely put some effort into getting rid of outside noises, so that street noise, cars, sirens, like that kind of thing, air conditioning, that kind of thing is not going to be a noise problem in the tracking room. And then also making sure that you can't hear the instruments in the live room when you're in the control room, right? So just separation, isolation, soundproofing between those two rooms. It was a huge headache for me in my old studio because that wasn't really done that well. And so when we're tracking drums, for example, like I can hear the drum sound coming through the wall and also my speakers. So, I dealt with it. You can work with it. It's okay. But if you have that total isolation where you're truly only hearing what's coming through the mic, it really just helps you make decisions. So I would focus on that. It depends on the size of the room. If it's a small room, I would really just try to deaden it as much as possible. If it's a bigger room, I would want it to have some sort of reflective area that I can get good room sounds for drums. What else? Just like the comfort factor, like having well-designed HVAC and air conditioning is really important if you're working with clients a lot in the studio. Man, there's nothing that ruins the day more than just like everyone's sweating buckets in the control room because, it's so hot, with all that gear on like a summer day, like it gets crazy. So I put some time and money and effort into that part of it as well. On the control room side, for my build right now, I told them my main focus is I want it to be pretty soundproof for the rest of the house. I don't want to be hearing footsteps really loud if someone's walking above me. The room's going to be in the basement, and like kind of on the other side of the basement is going to be like our TV area, right? And I want someone like our kids to be able to be watching a movie over in that part of the basement, and I can be mixing or working in my studio and not have that sound be an issue. So soundproofing for sure. And then acoustic treatment, it's like, honestly, I've mixed for so long now, like almost 10 years out of like a traditional control room studio environment, just in like rooms like this in houses where I've just put some minimal treatment on the walls and I can mix totally fine. So like, I'm not super concerned with, perfect acoustics in the room. Of course, we're going to have bass traps. We're going to have some panels. It's probably going to be the best sounding room I've ever had. But honestly, I wasn't too concerned about that. I'm fine to mix, almost anywhere. So I would really focus on the tracking room. I think if you're going to be recording bands and instruments in a tracking, in a live room, you want to have that room pretty well sealed, comfortable, and sounding pretty good in there. All right. Dioj, sorry if I don't pronounce that. What are your opinions on mixing on headphones exclusively? Yeah, not a fan really. However, I've been mixing on AirPods more lately. I'm getting to the point where I'm doing almost half my mixing on AirPods because I just know them so well. Like that's what I listen to music on. I go for runs, I go for walks. I'm listening to music on AirPods. And so when I actually hook my AirPods up to Pro Tools and I'm mixing, it's like very easy for me to like make quick decisions. That said, I think I still need monitors because I don't know, it's like a bit of a reality check or something. I don't know what it is. You just hear things differently in the room with speakers, and you need to have both, I think. And the AirPods thing is, it's not really that they're headphones that they're special. It's like I'm just so used to them. I know what records should sound like on them, so I know whether my stuff's translating or not. But aside from that, like I have a hard time mixing on traditional headphones. I think mostly just because I don't listen to music on studio headphones, right? Like I don't walk around with these big Audio Technicas listening to music. And so it's not like built into my brain what the record's supposed to sound like on those headphones. I think that's the most important factor when you're mixing. So I think it can be done. Personally, I don't love it, but I know there's a lot of pros who are able to do it. The key is just knowing those headphones like inside and out. If you're going to mix on headphones, then you should be listening to music on those headphones like as much as you possibly can so that you know what it's supposed to sound like. Chad Smith, are any recommendations or alternatives to NS10s or CLA 10s? No. Nope. Those are the ones, man. Just you don't need an alternative. Just get that. Going to college for audio production and music technology? I'm not. No. No, maybe you're asking if you should. I would say no. Very expensive compared to the education you can get online now. And from my experience, at least the people we work with a lot of people who come to us for mentorship in my program. And a lot of them have said that they've spent like 40 grand on audio college, and they learn way more just working with us than they did there. So, I think you can just do your research, find someone who you really align with, whose work you really respect, and see if they're offering any sort of online program, online mentorship. Go that route. There's no the degrees and certificates. They matter this much in the music industry. So yeah, I wouldn't do that. All right. How do you tackle peak resonances and dead spots in bass guitar while mixing? And how do you deal with this situation in the presence of recorded bass does not fit the song? Bass can be tricky if it's not recorded well. I found that this often comes down to the bass guitar itself. Some basses just suck, and you get these resonances or you get these dead spots. It's really annoying to deal with in a mix. I just mixed a song where I had to deal with that. In essence, just a lot of processing. Usually a lot of multi-band compression. So wherever that range is, where you're getting those dips and peaks and resonances, using multi-band compressors on those areas specifically so that those really kind of peaky notes get squashed down. The quieter notes can therefore come up. Sometimes I've had to do multiple stages of multi-band. Like I'll maybe do a broad multi-band compression that's compressing everything from like 500 hertz down or like 300 hertz down. It's compressing all of that. Then I'll do a little bit of EQ. Then I'll throw in another multi-band compressor that's like just doing one smaller range if it's still sticking out. So lots of compression, multi-bands. Saturation too can help just kind of even that out, as it kind of saturates and distorts the louder parts and then adds content to the quieter parts. That can help as well. And then also a presence of a recorded bass does not fit the song. I'm assuming you mean if it's like a lot brighter and more trebly than it needs to be, or not trebly enough. If it's not enough, then I'll usually duplicate a DI track, add distortion, blend that in. Lots of 1K, 1.5K on EQ can help add more of that. If there's too much of that, then just the opposite EQ, just I'll use a shelf, or maybe like 2K or 1K, and I'll just like do a shelf that's cutting. Might do a low pass filter even to get rid of some of that presence if we don't need it there. All right, what else we got? Some of the questions, if I feel like I can't answer it well, then I'll just skip it. But, for example, I don't mix a lot of 808s, so I'll skip that question. Ryan, when blending a snare sample with the original, is there any processing you do to the original transient, such as transient shaper, so they blend well together? Not really. In terms of choosing a sample that's going to blend well, like usually if I'm mixing live drums, I'll mix those live drums to where I'm like pretty happy with them. Like I'll try to push them as much as I can without using samples to see how good I can get. And then once I feel like I've hit the limit there, then I start adding samples, and I'll just audition a few. And I don't play with like getting too crazy with transient shapers or like adjusting the pitch of the drum to like match a sample or anything like that. I'll just cycle through like the 3 or 4 snare samples that I like using, and whatever one just meshes well with that snare and gives me the sound I'm going for, I'll just roll with that one. And if it doesn't, like if I think I'm like, oh, I'm going to use this snare, but then I pull it up and I blend it, I'm like, there's something weird here, there's some weird phasiness or whatever, I'm not going to go and mess with the live snare. I'll just find another sample. So hopefully I understood and answered that question well there. How do you mic up the guitar speaker for high gain metal guitar tone? Yeah, dude, there is a video on my channel. I think it's called How to Mic Up a Guitar Cab, and it'll show you exactly how to do that. So after this stream, definitely go and check out that video. What's the best distressor plugin? I haven't tried a ton of them. I've tried one from Kive Audio, which was good, but I just found the controls a little, I don't know, too many controls or something on it. I like simple plugins. The only other one I've really spent time with is the Slate one, the one that's in the virtual mix rack. And I like that one. I think it sounds like a distressor. And I haven't really tried any others because I tried that one and I was like, yeah, that sounds like what I expect. Just in that first question I answered about tracking with compression on the way in, I think I first tried it when I had a vocal track that wasn't compressed. And I was like, well, I'm going to try a distressor plugin. And I put that on. I was like, yep, that's what I expected the distressor to sound like. So I like that one. I'm fine with it. Yeah, I'm sorry I haven't tried any others. What's the rule in setting the VTPC on your CLA 10s? Yeah, so if anyone doesn't know, that stands for virtual toilet paper control. They used to put like toilet paper over top of the tweeter on the NS10s to make them less bright. The CLA 10s, they have a knob on the back that basically just adjusts the brightness. So mine are like, I think they're like 2 notches below 12 o'clock. So they're about like 11 o'clock. I think. And how I set that is I put them right up beside my actual NS10s. Like I had, they're back over here. They're back on my shelf now. But I put them up beside my NS10s and I just literally played a bunch of mixes and I tried to adjust that control to where the high end was about the same as my NS10s because that's what I was used to. And so that's how I did it. And so, yeah, I ended up with them around 11 o'clock. So, yeah, if they're new speakers for you, just put them up beside whatever you're used to listening on, and then just try to get it in the same ballpark and then move on. Jerome, have you tried Luna? I have not. Jerry, what's your thoughts on the massive change to Meshuggah sound on Immutable? I have not heard it. Keith, I'm about a month away from opening my first studio in a small town, plenty of musicians in the area. Do you have any advice for landing your first client? Yeah, I mean, this is something we talk a lot about in our program. So the things that move your business are like, well, number one is just how good are you? Like the quality of your work. So just focusing on just becoming as good as you possibly can and continuing to improve and just blow people away with the quality of your work. And have a portfolio that when people hear it, they're like, wow, that sounds amazing. That's really number one priority. And then aside from that, just network with people. I think the biggest thing you can do is like get out there, like actually meet people in the scene, right? Maybe you already do know some people. You say there's plenty of musicians in the area. I'm guessing you already know some of them. Don't be afraid to tell them like, hey, I'm opening my studio. I've got a studio. Like a lot of people are just so shy, or we're all hiding behind our devices and our computer these days. We just expect to like put up an Instagram post and then all this business to come. Like, no, you need to actually make real connections. So go to shows, talk to people who are in these bands. You said there's plenty of musicians. Like, I hope you're talking with them and coming at a place not of like, always trying to be like, hey, come record, but just being genuinely interested. Like, what are you guys working on? Can I hear some of your songs? Oh, I like this song. Like, you just have genuine relationships with people. Those are the 2 big things, just genuine connections and relationships, genuinely being interested in what bands are doing in your scene and involved. And then secondly, first, and just being really good, being as good as you possibly can be. And since you're just starting out looking for your first client, like when you do land them, like go way above and beyond, like knock it out of the park. Don't let anything stop you. I like to call this the gold standard mindset. All right, Fourfold is asking parallel compression, but my crush track is uncompressed with just a little EQ. What? That's what I've been doing recently with compressors on each individual track, and then set. Sorry, dude, I don't understand the question. All right. I saw a video concerning making it in the industry. So my question is, how do I get clients I can charge $400 or more? It goes back to my other answer, like be really freaking good. And I know maybe $400 sounds like a lot for you. That is actually very cheap for professional music production, start to finish. 10x that, it would be like more closer to the standard of like, really kind of professional level work in this industry. So, maybe you're thinking a little too small. Like maybe instead of asking, how do I get clients to charge 400? How can I get clients to charge 1,000 per song or more? And the answer is same answer I just gave. Like, be really freaking good. Like, you have to be really, really good. Because $400 or less than $400, you're kind of that's competing in kind of the average home studio market. That's not like, you're not really competing with pros. So if you can have work that actually sounds competitive like the pros and do that consistently and build a track record, then you can charge those rates. But you've got to be active. You got to be involved. People have to know who you are. Dazzle Rebel, Atmos, ask about Atmos. Yeah, I did a video on this as well, kind of talking about my thoughts. Actually, it was a live stream. It was a recent live stream where I talked about my thoughts on Atmos. I don't think you need to worry about it right now, but just go back and check out my channel for that. Do I need to enable phase button every time on one of the two mics every time I record stereo acoustic guitar? Kiko, no. I don't know why you would need to unless your mics are facing like opposite ways. If you're doing something weird. If it's just like an XY stereo acoustic guitar, you shouldn't need to hit the phase on any of them. So yeah, I'd have to see how you're recording that guitar, because you shouldn't have to. And you also don't always have to record acoustic guitar in stereo. I almost never do. Even if it's like a singer-songwriter with an acoustic guitar and a vocal, I'll usually just record that in mono. Maybe I'll have like stereo room mics or something if that's literally all there is in the track. But a guitar is it's a mono instrument, like we hear a guitar from one source. So like you don't necessarily need to have it in stereo. Okay, a couple more questions about finding clients, which I kind of answered there. To start from scratch, yeah, would be just connecting. Like if you're literally from scratch, it's like just get yourself into the mix in your local scene. Like find out who the bands are, where are the shows, go to the shows, just be active. Like go to their show and then message them later and be like, hey, I loved your set, whatever. Like just build genuine relationships with people. Go above and beyond for delivering value. Like in the early days, your goal when you're starting from scratch is like not to get paid as much as you can. Your goal is just to like do more work to establish yourself in the industry. Like you need to get that ball rolling, even if you're charging lower rates at first. Like you should make it your goal to like record as many local bands in your scene as humanly possible. Just record them all, because then they're going to all start talking to each other and they play shows together and they talk about their experience with you. And then that's how it kind of grows. And then as you get better as well, as your quality gets better and that network grows, eventually they're just going to be coming to you without you having to really go out. And then if your stuff is good enough, your demand's going to grow. You'll be able to raise those rates. So it's all about just getting your hands on real projects, doing whatever you can to just help bands out. Come and record a demo for free. Let's do some pre-production. You don't even have to pay me. Just let me... let's record a song. I'll do the first one for free if you guys want to do some more. Let's do some more. Like it's all about just volume and getting yourself out there in the early days. A lot of people take that approach, like they've been recording and mixing for 10 years and they're still like offering free projects to people. You don't want to be in that boat, but in the early days, there's nothing wrong with that. Kublai says, I'm not here to ask a question, but thank you. A few years back, you were making some online courses. After those, I got really good at what I do. Oh, awesome. Thank you, man. Much appreciated. Okay, so we got clarity on this parallel compression question. Do you send a raw track to parallel compression bus or the one you've EQ'd and compressed? I send the one I've EQ'd and compressed. So for drums, I'll send all my processed drums to that track. I have a little bit of a certain way I do that, but yeah, it's not raw. It's everything processed. Alex is saying he's engineering and mixing his band. What are your thoughts on Steven Slate Drums? What drum sampler do you prefer? Um, I've tried them. I'm just used to Superior Drummer if it's all MIDI drums. I guess I don't know if you're talking about just MIDI drums straight up or adding samples to live drums. Um, yeah, if it's MIDI drums straight up, I like Superior Drummer. I'm just used to it. I like the interface. If that tool's always worked for me, so just learning another tool just for the sake of it, like Slate Drums or Contact or something, I'm not going to spend my time doing that. But I mean, the Slate has some good samples. You know, they're one of the companies that's been around for a long time for a reason. I don't really use their samples anymore because I've made my own. But you can definitely use some of those. But I use the Slate Trigger plugin, and I just use all my own samples in there. So yeah, I guess I don't know exactly which kind of way you're asking that question, but hopefully that helps. If I want to make my vocals more aggressive, can I use distortion on them? Yeah, absolutely. You might want to try it in parallel. If you know, that might help to just go really aggressive distortion on a parallel track and then mix that in. I've done that before. $8.30. I'm a producer, mixer in the studio, recently transferred into doing front of house for a rock band. I feel like it's made me better at studio mixing. I understand the fundamentals better. Thoughts? Yeah, that's interesting. I've never spent that much time on front of house stuff. But yeah, probably just having more exposure, like in different scenarios, different pressures on you to react to different ways, making you think on your feet a little quicker, especially in a live setting where you're kind of just, you know, you don't get the chance to like play that bass guitar in solo like 20 times to like figure out how to EQ it, right? You can't do that when you're live. So I think when you're live, it probably focuses you to focus on like, okay, what's actually important here, and how can I achieve that thing, or how can I fix this problem as quickly as I possibly can? And you know, there's a whole bunch of room issues and there's crowd noise, and so you're trying to like, you're probably maybe pushing things a little more, being a little bit more quick and decisive about your actions. And so that's going to translate into helping you in the studio as well. So yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense, dude. Okay, Barons. Why did you pick up Pro Tools Carbon instead of staying on Apogee or other interface? Yeah, a couple of reasons. You know, to be transparent, I could afford a more expensive interface, and so, you know, I wasn't limited by budget necessarily. So I was willing to spend a little more. Secondly, I have always used Pro Tools, and I like Pro Tools, and I have no intention of changing. And so having an interface that is designed by the same company, I want it to be seamless. I don't want there to be compatibility issues. I want that to connect really easily without any third-party apps or anything like that going on. So that was another reason. I've always been happy with, like, I used to have Pro Tools HD system where I had the Avid 192 IOs. I thought those converters were good. Totally happy with those. So if the Carbon's at least as good or better, I knew I was going to be happy with the conversion. It had the features I wanted. And also I wanted to have so I had the Apogee Duet before, and because, you know, I'm just mixing here at home, like I pretty much just need a stereo out and I need to put this mic into it. So it's not like I needed all the channels on the Carbon, but you guys have seen videos that I've done recently, maybe like where I'm shooting out 4 different 1176 compressors, right? And I'm using those as analog inserts in Pro Tools. Like, I can't do that with my little 2-channel Apogee, right? So I wanted an interface that, even though it's not very often that I need to, and even though it's very rare, that if I needed to, you know, if I wanted to shoot out some analog gear or test out different things in my studio for the sake of the YouTube channel or just for my own fun, that I would be able to do that. And I could have the channels, and I could have, you know, a system that's going to be reliable for that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's those are basically the reasons. Is the preamp or AD converter more important in the hierarchy? I currently have a Focusrite Scarlett with 773 Cologne, considering selling both and grabbing a UA Apollo. Interesting question. Yeah. What would I say? I would say the preamp's more important. because the converter's only converting the sound that gets to it, right? Which is going through a mic and a preamp, right? So you kind of trace it back, and I think the hierarchy is kind of in order of like what you actually do. Like person, like performer, instrument, mic, preamp, converter. So I'd say the preamp's a little more important. Focusrite Scarlett, I think it's decent, but I think you will notice a difference if you upgrade that converter, man. The thing is, if you go Apollo, I haven't tried an Apollo with like this. I'm assuming it has like the built-in pre's. That was what you're talking about, because you're selling both the preamp and the converter. Like your 1073 clone might have a better preamp than the Apollo, right? So I think maybe you keep the 1073 and grab a, and then just run that into your new Apollo. I think you probably will hear a difference between those converters. All right, Matthew's asking, how do you know when your mix is getting better, and what are some advice you could give? Well, it's getting better when you're comparing it to other records, right? Like the records that you listen to for established bands, like the music you listen to on Spotify or whatever, like you got to put your mix right up against that, A, B, back and forth between that. Is it getting closer to that or not? That's really it. Usually other people notice, your clients or other people are listening to your work. They'll say something when it's getting better. The other way would just be having feedback, right? If you have an avenue where you have an actual professional who can listen to your work over time and give you feedback and tell you whether it's getting better, whether you're on the right track, that obviously helps. Just having someone outside of yourself making that judgment call, that's important too. Do you mix songs that you don't like at all? Yeah, not very often these days. I'm blessed to be able to kind of pick and choose what I do now. So I typically won't take a project unless I think the song is at least, decent. So yeah, definitely, like I spent lots of years mixing songs that I didn't like, for sure. That's just part of the game, but you've got to detach yourself anyways and be like, even though I don't like this song, someone else might. And so I'm going to try and bring out the best I possibly can in the song. I'm going to find something in here to be excited about and use that to push it as much as I can. All right, Diego, what criteria do you follow to determine the general low-high balance on any individual track? I always find myself struggling with my high end. I'm assuming you mean like low end versus high end balance. Again, reference tracks, man. I have a reference playlist of records that I really know and love the way they sound, that I think kind of really hit the benchmark of what is the modern competitive mix that I'm going for. And I'm referencing against that. How much low end do I have compared to that? How much sub low end is there? How much low mid is there? How much mid range? How forward is it? How loud are the vocals? How much S on the top end, or how much sizzle is there on the cymbals when I reference? That's what I'm looking for to make sure I have the right high-low balance there. All right, guys, I think there's like a ton of questions I haven't got to yet. It's almost been an hour. I'm just scanning through here. How do you make all instruments sound distinctive, separate, but also part of the mix? Yeah, that's one of the main challenges of mixing, right? We want to be able to hear the separation of instruments, but we also want it to like glue and meld together. Yeah, that's a lot of just practice and really just getting better at the craft. I'd say like less mixing in solo definitely helps with this, because in solo you tend to make the wrong moves, because when you mix something in solo, you might be like, oh, there's too much low mid, I'm going to scoop it, or I'm going to add this top end sparkle because that's good. But like that might not be what the track needs in context. So I think just mixing in solo as least amount as you possibly can, and making those decisions in the context of a mix is really going to help your mix sound more glued and dynamic. Compression helps a lot. Being able to really manage the dynamics of each track. Like there's a lot of compression on like a modern rock mix. And I think once you have that compression, your sound is very contained. You're able to kind of place it a little bit better. Mix bus compression plays into this, like having the mix bus compressor catch those drum peaks and turn them down, and that kind of helps the drums and everything glue together. That helps as well. Using lots of saturation, especially if you're fully in the box, which most of us are, like definitely having a healthy amount of saturation helps, just to fill in kind of the gaps harmonically, because digital recording, digital mixing, it's quite clean, right? We kind of need that extra love from saturation and harmonics and subtle distortions, kind of filling in all the gaps to make it come together. So yeah, I think it's kind of like, those are some general high level tips. You know, if I was to listen to someone's mix, I'd be able to give more specific tips on like, here's how to make this mix sound more glued. But yeah, hopefully that helps, Rod. Paleo, sorry if I don't pronounce that right. What's your go-to compressor for electric guitars? The CLA 3A from Waves, and there's a preset on there called electric guitar. I use it on acoustics as well. That's my favorite guitar compressor. I use it on cleans. I use it on rhythms. It's great. 1176 works too. Even the compressor on the SSL channel sometimes I'll use. Do you route your... Oh, I was wondering why you don't route your drum effects as verb to your drum bus. I just don't. I don't know. I want to control my reverb, like my snare reverb separately, and not be like compressed and EQ'd by whatever's happening on my drum bus. Okay, for songs that switch between fast double time beats and big slower courses, how do you manage the low end to where the courses it's not so overpowering? Yeah, I mean, I'd have to hear the song to really know how I would handle that. But you know, if you're talking about fast double time beats, slower courses, managing the low end, right? So it's going to be the kick drum, I'm assuming, right? Because your bass guitar energy is probably going to stay fairly consistent, even if it's playing faster versus playing slower. So I would probably generally I do this, like faster drum beats. If you're hearing more kick and snare hits, you can generally turn them down a bit more, right? So I'd probably have like the kick down a little bit in those faster parts, and then up a little bit more in the slower courses. You might do the same thing on the bass guitar, or at least just turn the bass up. If it's kind of slower, longer held notes on the bass through the courses, you can turn those up. And if you're still feeling like there's an imbalance there, you go to the next layer of complexity, which would be EQ automation. You know, I have definitely been in cases where on a verse, I will literally have the EQ, like less low end EQ'd on the kick drum, and then boost more low end on the kick drum on the chorus. Or on the bass guitar, I'll literally like dip out some of the low end EQ on a verse or on a bridge or whatever, and then have it back up in the chorus just to manage that energy right. So, you know, it's Tucker, you're thinking in the right way here. And it's, you know, don't overcomplicate it. It's volume automation, EQ automation if volume's not doing enough for you, and that should get you there. James, do you ever automate your master fader to make big climax hit harder, or do you have some more nuanced techniques? Yeah, so I mean, I just explained a kind of a more nuanced technique. I generally don't. There are definitely times where I feel like I've done everything I normally do in a mix. Like I normally do a pass of automation. I have a certain step-by-step process of how I do automation on, you know, all the different tracks in the mix, and that alone is going to involve kind of having things hit harder or pull back. That usually takes care of it. If I get through that stage and I still feel like this chorus or this outro is hitting too hard, or this bridge is too loud, I'll definitely go on the master fader and I'll pull it back just a tiny bit, but it would be very, very small moves in that case. And that's rare. That's probably like only 10% of the time or less I'm doing it there. I don't think it's wrong or bad to do, but I like to mix with more control over everything rather than, just really broad stroke. That's kind of more for like a very, very last stage kind of thing. All right, Matt's asking, I noticed you use the CLA Vocal Comp on Blue for vocals and black for drums. Have you ever switched the two up? Actually, you know what? I've never tried the blue on drums, I don't think. It's kind of funny now that you asked that. I don't think I've ever done that. Maybe I should. I have used the black on vocals for sure, lots of times. Usually on background vocals, I use the black because I don't want the extra like mid-range saturation that the blue gives. I don't want that on background vocals or harmonies. Also like just mellower songs. Like if I'm mixing a more mellow pop track or something that's not like heavy, I'll often use the black 1176 on the lead vocal, just because the blue is just too aggressive sounding. I want it to mellow out a bit, so I'll use that. So yeah. Matthew, is there any way I can send my tracks for you to listen? Not really. Recently I did like a mix critique video on this channel. So I'll probably do that again because it seemed like people really liked that. Just keep an eye on my channel on the community tab. I'll make a post when I'm accepting some more submissions, but I'll get a bunch of those. I'll just choose like 5 or something just randomly. If you want actual feedback guaranteed all the time, that's something you got to invest in. That's something we do inside my full program, my paid program, which you can check out on the website. But in terms of just like on a casual basis, unfortunately not. Do you have drummers track and parts and sections like you mentioned to do with guitars? Not as much. I like to do fuller takes with drums, and then we'll punch in spots that need to be fixed. There's just a lot more factors in drums, right? There's like the room ambience, there's the ringing of the cymbals, the ringing of the shells, and how hard they're hitting everything. It's a lot harder to just like piecemeal it together. So yeah, generally bigger sections, and then get them to play along and punch stuff in if we need to. All right, guys, I'll take a few more. Man, this is good. It's surprising how fast this time goes, eh? All right, Peter, should I use a DI box in front of my interface when tracking guitars and bass, or is plugging into the interface good enough? Well, I like to use the DI box. Now I'll say that I haven't done like a proper test of like, plugging it directly in, recording a part, plugging it directly into a DI, and then recording that same part and like comparing which one sounds better. I haven't really done that. However, my sense is that over time, I have found that the DI into the mic preamp usually sounds better. I don't know why. I'm guessing it's because when you have an instrument input built into an interface, the interface is trying to be a mic preamp, it's trying to be a instrument DI, it's trying to be a converter all at the same time. Like there's compromises that have to be made. And I would guess that on the cheaper units, especially, like that instrument input is probably not as high quality as it could be, right? So yeah, I think using a DI box, that's what I do here at home. I use a DI box into the mic preamp. Sometimes I'll just plug directly into the interface, but again, I haven't done like a side-by-side comparison, but so I don't know, maybe it's placebo or something, but I think that it sounds better using a DI box. It's a very unscientific answer there. Okay, a chase for you. Should I save myself now and get out of mixing for a living? Only if you suck at it. No, yeah, I don't know. I don't like this mindset of like that it's, you know, it's hard to make a living in music. It's like, well, I guess in one sense you could say it is, but of course it is. Like, everyone wants to make a living in music. Like, so if you want to be one of the people that gets to do it, then you got to be better than everyone else. So the question is like, are you willing to do what it takes to be better than everyone else? If the answer is no, then yeah, maybe you should get out of it. But if you're willing to commit and you're willing to like go the distance and actually do what it takes to become really good at this, and you're willing to go through the frustrations and pay your dues and put the time in and all that stuff, then no, you probably shouldn't. Because you can actually make a lot of money. I know guys who are making six figures just mixing, but they're really good. So you got to be really good. There's definitely money out there. We are not in 2012 when the bottom of the music industry hit after pirating and all that stuff and everything crashed. Like, guys, there's more money in the music industry right now than there was in like 1999, 2000. Like, seriously, you can go and look up the numbers, the actual statistics of global music revenue over the last like 25 years. There's more money in the music industry now than there was before. And I even see this myself at all levels, from labels to independent bands, independent clients. They're all willing to pay more than they were back in like 2013. Like, they just are, because they're making more money. So don't use the industry as an excuse. It's just you. Like, and most people aren't willing to do what it takes. So if you are, you have an advantage. If you become really good, you'll do fine. So yeah, don't be a victim of the industry or think that it's all bad and all this stuff. That's just all nonsense. That's all victim mentality. Like, you know, this is it's the same anything. It doesn't matter if it's music or some other kind of art or even something in business. It's like, yeah, it's competitive. Everyone's like, a lot of people are trying to do the thing, right? And so, like, you know, you got to be the best, right? And if you can be really good, you can succeed. That's it. All right, guys, let me scan quick. I know there's a ton here. I don't think the little scroll bar on my comment window is like not even halfway down. So let me see. I'll do one or two more because I am enjoying this. Let me scroll down. Let me scroll way down. Okay, Dexter, do you use mixing templates for your mixes for faster workflow? Yep, absolutely, all the time. It saves me a lot of time using templates for sure. Everything about music. How many hours do you sleep in a day? What makes you look so fresh and healthy after working hours and hours of mixing and mastering? Have you ever planned to become a vlogger? I pretty much am a vlogger, man. I publish videos every week. I'm not mixing every day. I kind of pick and choose mixing projects these days. So yeah, I'm not working like, 8-hour days in the studio and then making YouTube videos. I'm usually doing one or the other. But I sleep like 8-9 hours a night. I'm one of those guys who, like, I wish I could be one of those guys who's like, I only need 5 hours of sleep and I can wake up at 5 a.m. and be super productive. Like, I wish I could do that. I just can't, at least at this point in my life. So I try to wake up early and stuff, but yeah, I need like at least 8, if not 9. Like, I only feel like at my best if I'm like above 9 hours of sleep. I'm one of those people. So I wish I could get by, get by on less. All right, guys. Let me scan and see if I can get one more. Okay, a couple similar questions. People are asking, do you ever consider doing live mix reviews like some other channels do? Maybe not live. I could. I've done some not live. I just did one last week. Do you do mix critiques for a fee? Yeah, that is something we provide in my full program, the Pro Production System. We do weekly mix critiques. So you can check that out on the website. Get in contact with us if you're interested in that. All right, this will be the last question for today, guys. When you're mixing, what is your process? Do you do it in a certain way every time, or is there a reason for changing the process? Yes, I do it a certain way every single time. Quick story on this. I had a client from like 10 years ago, mixed their stuff, and he's also kind of a student, studies my stuff. So I sent the Pro Tools session to him. He asked for it. He's like, "Can I get your mix session?" Sure, send it to him. And then like 10 years later, I worked on another song with the band, and he's like, "Hey, can I get the Pro Tools session?" So I sent it to him. He's like, "Dude, your session looks the exact same." I was like, "Yeah, I haven't changed anything." So yeah, the process has stayed the same. I use the same workflow. It usually starts by setting up the session, setting up the track names, the track order, buses, routing, importing my template, volume balance. Then I start on drums, then bass, guitars, vocals, and I circle back, and then I'm kind of bouncing everywhere. Then I do automation, then I do any special effects that I'm adding. So, I definitely have a very step-by-step process that I follow. It really helps with consistency. It really helps with speed as well. A lot of that is like with the routing and everything, and setting my kind of default processing, or at least the default signal chains, even if they're all bypassed, like that's all in my template. So it's very easy. I'm not stuck. Like, I'm not wondering like when a lead guitar needs EQ, I'm not like, or compression, I'm not like, I'm not scrolling through my plugin list being like, which one should I use today? Like, that doesn't happen. It's like the plugin's already on there and I'm just turning it on and dialing it in, right? So yeah, that's definitely always the same process. Is there reasons for changing the process? Not really. Think of Chris Lord-Alge, think of Andy Wallace, think of all these mixers that, we all look up to. Like, they don't change their process. Like, I don't know what CLA is doing now, but up until recently, he was still dumping everything to his 48-track digital tape machine. I don't know if he's still doing that, but for a long time, he was doing that when he could have just been using the DAW. Why? He doesn't want to change the process because he's fast. It's second nature. It's automatic. So yeah, you just keep getting better at the process. You keep getting better at the tools. Keep the process the same as much as you can. Okay, guys, this is a lot of fun, man. This goes by really quickly. It's fun to answer your questions. We'll definitely do this again on the channel. If you guys liked it, drop a comment if you're watching the replay, even if you're here live. If you want me to do this more often on the channel, definitely let me know. And yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys. Hope you got some value here. We'll talk to you later.